Hello everyone, I'm very happy to be here. I'm also a little bit nervous because this is the first time that I'm giving a talk, but I hope everything will go smoothly. The title of my talk is React Native Apps Can Be Beautiful, an Animation Showcase. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Alex, I'm Polish, I live in Gdynia, and I've been a front-end developer for about 7 years. I've been working at Format for over 2 years now. I work mostly with React.js, and let me tell you a little bit about Format. It's a portfolio website builder. It's seriously one of the best website builders out there, and I would know, I wrote some of it. But anyway, I really recommend it. It's a great website. It's also a great workplace. My talk will be divided into 4 parts. First of all, we'll do a small introduction into animations. I will try to show you that animations on the web are very different ideologically from animations in React Native apps. Then we will go through some real-world examples of apps that are out there. Next, we will dive into some solutions and strategies which can be used to add animations to your own apps. And if you manage to stay with me until the end, I will introduce you to a very cute digital dog called Pushak. So let's dive right in with the introduction. Why should you care about animations in your apps? A lot of people who work with React Native have a web development background. They have some preconceptions about animations. Animations on the web are considered to be something unnecessary, something that slows down the user website, something that doesn't add anything to the content of the website. It just makes it pretty, and it's sort of an afterthought. Web developers also have to consider the fact that the user may be on a very slow internet connection, so the animations just seem like a lot of fluff that may be blocking the user from getting to your content. However, we need to look at React Native apps with fresh eyes. Apps are not websites. Website users have very different expectations than app users. Whenever someone uses a website, pretty much the only expectation they have is that the website will scroll. It can be just plain text. I mean, we've all been to Wikipedia, right? It's just plain text. It scrolls, it works, it's just fine. However, when we use apps, we have much higher expectations. We are used to a lot of features that we use on our phones, and we expect those features to work across all apps. Those features are gestures, loading states, pull to refresh, swiping, and a host of others. And I mentioned bandwidth before with websites. This is something we are not concerned with when we talk about animating a React Native app. Once the user downloaded your app, the animations will run no matter what their internet connection is. So we can go crazy. And seriously, we need to break out of the old patterns, because it's not enough to just slap together a view with a bottom navigation and just say we're done. We need to do more. As far as animations in a React Native app are concerned, I believe we can distinguish 3 contexts: gestures, motions, and micro interactions. Gestures are pretty self-explanatory. That's everything that happens when the user swipes or half swipes and the content bounces back. Maybe they're scrolling faster, panning, or pinching the content. Motion is a very general term for animation, for everything that moves around on the screen. And microinteractions are subtle element animations that appear usually in response to a user action. I feel that the most famous microinteraction is the ripple effect on the button in material design. That's the small grayish ripple that appears on those material design buttons when you click them. Let's talk a little bit about the goal of motion and interactions in apps. This slide was informed mostly by the material design documentation and a UX design article. As far as material design is concerned, even if you don't like the look of material design or you don't like Google as a company, I still recommend reading through the documentation. It's a very high level view and it's very useful to keep in mind the guides and the rules that they set forward. I listed out 5 goals of motion and interactions in apps. The first one is that motion provides timely feedback and indicates the status of user actions. This is pretty much what I mentioned before with the ripple effect. When a user touches or clicks a button, they want to know that they did click it. They want to know that they didn't accidentally touch another element, or maybe they will start rage clicking it 1,000 times and you'll end up with a broken application. If you use this subtle ripple effect on your button, the user will immediately be informed that they did correctly click the button, and all they have to do now is sit back, relax, and wait for the result of their action. The second goal of motion interaction apps is that motion celebrates moments in user journeys and it adds character to common interactions. Now, this is something most commonly used in onboarding flows, for example, where we have pretty places where the brand can show off their beautifulness, pretty much. We do not want our React Native apps to look like a block of text or like an Excel sheet. We want them to be beautiful, right? And animations are the way to go. The third goal of motion interactions in apps is that motion helps users understand how to perform actions. You can think of that in, for example, if you click a buy button and you see the image of the product that you just bought move up to the image of the cart, for example, that draws your attention to the cart and helps you understand how to go to your cart and finish your shopping. And the last goal of motion interactions in apps is that motion helps orient users by showing how elements in a transition are related. The best example would be on a category page in an e-commerce app. When a user touches actually a product image, the product image would, let's say the image will move slightly up and the product details appear below the image. The user will understand perfectly what happened and they will be nicely oriented compared to a situation if they click the image and the whole screen goes blank and then another screen appears with all the information. They may feel a little bit lost. What I want to convince you of here is that we need to push our apps from just usable to delightful. This is a quote from a great article by Tristan Plank that I highly recommend. Tristan explains in much greater detail microinteractions and motion and how our apps can really go to the next level and be really great and not just okay-ish. Okay, so it's time to dive into the real world. Let's start with the Uber Eats app. The Uber Eats app uses React Native and it actually uses such great animations that there's a Mashable article written about those delightful animations. Imagine if that happened to your app. It's great that not only is your app useful, It's so beautiful that it warrants a whole article about how beautiful it is. The second real life world example that I want to show today is the Wix app. Wix has a very nice animated onboarding screen, and they use subtle animations and cards. And when we get to the navigation, they use a very natively looking nice animation with a round button that appears only if you scroll up to the top. That's something that helps orient the user, get them where you want them to be, and have a blast using your app. There's a big chance you've all heard about Uber Eats and Wix, so let's move on to something that you may be not familiar with. It's an app called Shine. It's a self-care app. It's written in React Native, and just look at that beautiful splash screen. I love it. I love how the yellow wave shows up. It just it's so pretty, and it's written in React Native. The rest of the app is very nicely animated as well. There's a bunch of appearing, disappearing, bouncing elements to it. It plays together very well with the idea of self-care and being positive and leading the very best possible life. This app actually received a bunch of awards. It received the Best of 2018 award in the App Store, as well as 2019 Google Play Award in the Standout Wellbeing App category. That's a mouthful. This app has an average rating of 4.7 in the App Store. So this app is an absolute proof that React Native apps can be beautiful and usable at the same time. At this moment, I would also like to mention that the GIF you're seeing on this slide is a screen recording from my pretty crappy phone, and still works very smoothly. There's no glitching, pretty much no problem at all, even though my phone is really slow. My phone can actually freeze when I'm trying to take pictures. It freezes on camera, and it doesn't freeze on this app. So way to go, Shine. The next real life example that I want to show you is the SoundCloud Pulse app. That's a difficult word. This is an app for SoundCloud creators. I'm not a SoundCloud creator, so I only could go through the onboarding screen. But still, on the onboarding screen, we already see those very nice subtle animations that make this app pop. This is really a great example of how a small animation can make a big difference. SoundCloud also wrote a couple of blog posts about their experience with React Native. It's a very good read. They are very honest with their experience. They don't sugarcoat it. They don't say they are totally in love with it. They talk about the caveats. But the bottom line is they did have a great experience using it, and they are planning on using React Native in more places at SoundCloud. The next app I want to show you is Shop by Shopify. Shopify is a company which seems to be pretty in love with React Native. They are very vocal about their involvement and their investment in React Native. They do articles, they do Medium posts, Medium articles about their experiences. And take a look at this app. You can see right away the subtle animation of the small arrow that goes up to the button on the top of the screen. You really want to click that button, right? You just want to get right in there and use this app when you see this delightful animation. The next example is an app for KFC. This app starts out with a full screen video. I mean, this is just incredibly engaging. You start the app and it's not just a splash screen, it's actually a piece of chicken, and I get hungry just looking at it. Once the video slides up, there's a very cute animation of Colonel Sanders asking you your name. It's a very nice experience, and it's really looking delicious. I like to say that there is no point in reinventing the wheel, right? So I just showed you a few examples of real apps that use very beautiful animations, and why don't we just inspire ourselves with what they did? We do not need to invent a new way of doing what they did. They already did it. Let's see how they did it. If you want to see how what libraries were used in an app that you feel is a good example, that is something that inspires you, you can actually look into their source code and find out how they did what they did. First of all, you need to choose your app. Let's say you choose your KFC app. Then you need to find the APK file for this app. There's a bunch of websites that offer free download of APK files. A few of them even have a release date, so you can be sure that you're downloading the latest APK file. Once you've downloaded the APK file, you can use the Android Studio app to analyze the APK file you just downloaded. When you open up Android Studio, there's an option. Instead of opening an app, you can click Profile or Debug APK. You click that, and then you choose the APK file you just downloaded from the internet, and Android Studio will show you a bunch of files, and within those files you will see classes.dex. Classes.dex is a file which will include all the external libraries that the given APK is using. You can look through the names of the libraries used, and then you can research them. You can see if they're open source or not, if they fit your needs or not. And then it's okay to use whatever everybody else is using. You can simply use the same library. Why not? And then you can actually brag about using the same library as Uber Eats or KFC. That's cool too. I've been snooping around the apps that I showed you earlier, and I can tell you that a lot of them use Airbnb Lottie. I know there has been a little bit of drama with Airbnb leaving the React Native world. They said they are moving away from it, but they did leave behind this Lottie library. I will get back to it in a second. The second library I would like to, animation library I would like to recommend is Reanimated. There's also a library called Pop Motion Pose, which I haven't personally used, but the documentation looks incredibly great. And the fourth library that I would like to recommend is Fluid Transitions. Let's get into some details. Airbnb Lottie is something that is a library that works with a plugin for After Effects. So what happens is that you have your designer create your animations in After Effects, or designer, or you yourself maybe, I don't know. Once you have your animations ready in After Effects, you can export them into JSON with a plugin called Body Movin'. And when you have them exported with JSON, you can use them in your React Native or your native app thanks to this library, Airbnb Lottie. And the effects are very beautiful. That's a library that I saw this library listed in the APK file for Uber Eats, and I'm pretty sure that's what they used for their delightful cooking animations. The second library animation library I would like to talk about is Reanimated. This is an animation library which kind of has a steep learning curve. you do need to invest some time in understanding how it works, how to best use it, but this is a library concentrated on performance. And once you do get to know it, you have a lot to win from using it. I would also like to talk to you a little bit about the fluid transitions library. Fluid transitions is something that can really make a big difference in an app. Orient the user, let them know what they're doing, and make the app beautiful. The creator of the Fluid Transitions library did a JS challenge, and in that JS challenge, he created the app that you can see in the GIF on the slide. Now, I'm very impressed with what he achieved. This is something that he did with React Native and his own library, and it looks incredibly great. It looks like something that has been produced by a huge team at Nike, right? This is just one guy, and he did that in React Native. I would like to introduce you to a very cute digital dog that I named Pushak. Here's how he came to be. First, there was a dribble shot created somewhere in 2015, and then a Code Drops article, which inspired me in turn to create a React Native app with an animated dog using only React Native Animated API. I would like to say that people responsible for the dribble shot, the guy, actually there's just one person that created this dribble shot. He's responsible for the look of this dog, and this dog is so cute, right? Then the person who wrote the Code Drops article, they solved so many issues on how to have this dog animate the way it is animated. He's animated in CSS only. And I feel that those two people really did the bulk of the work. I only drew from what they did. A fun example is the tail. I don't know if any of you would have an idea how to animate a tail that would kind of go up and down like this. You actually have to you have to create tiny tail elements and nest them one inside of the other, and that's why they kind of hinge on one another, and the tail moves like a tail. That's an incredible idea. That's an incredible way to solve a simple problem. Not as simple, that's an incredible idea to solve a difficult problem. It's a simple solution to a complex problem. So while I was working on Pushak, I repeated myself that math is my friend, and I would like, as much as I would like to look like the lady on the image, more often than that I looked like this, because you do have to do a lot of calculations in your head, kind of think in an abstract way, trying to get all of those elements moving the way you want them to move around. Luckily, I could be inspired by the Code Drops article, and I seriously drew a lot of solutions from them. But some solutions were not applicable from the web to the React Native app. The biggest one was actually the size of the dog, kind of like the placement of the dog, I would say. So I started out with writing my dog. I had my emulator, my iOS emulator, and I just went ahead and I started drawing a dog with percentages. Moved this element 30% up from the bottom, this one 30% from the left, rotated, and it's all fine and it's looking good, right? But then I fired up another emulator with a phone that had a significantly wider screen, and poof, the whole dog just went haywire. Because the ratio of the screen was different, and I didn't want to use a block with predefined pixel values for the dog, because if I did that to box him in, then on some screens he would seem smaller, or maybe he would be not placed exactly in the middle. And seriously, even if he was smaller, I want him to look exactly, take up the exact amount of screen on all mobile devices. And that's why I invented my relative width and relative height elements. I decided that I need one unit that will be a measuring stick for my dog. So I created full relative width, which is 80% of the width of the device, and full relative height, which is 1.5 of the widths of the device. I use those measuring sticks to put all my absolutely positioned elements on the dog, and they end up exactly where I want them to be, no matter if the screen is kind of on the wider side or if it's a smaller, or if it's not as wide. In order to style Pushak, I use CSS and JS. I kind of I create separate files for CSS, since there is a lot of it, and I added my animations in the components. They are a lot, I would say. There's a lot of code to create this small dog. If you want to read through it, the repo is public. Go ahead and check it out, and let me know what you think about it. So what's next for Pushak? I would like for this app to be much more interesting than just an animated dog. I actually invented this app as a weather app. So I started out with a dog, and I spent a lot of time on the dog, but I would like to display the weather in this app, and I would like to not only display the temperature, I would also like to show animations of the weather, like the sun, clouds, the rain, maybe snow. I would also like to give the users a chance to choose their own animal. So I like to add other animals. I know that Sarah Drasner created a farting rhino, and I would love to be able to add him to this app. And the top of the top for me would be to integrate Google Actions for this app. So my dream is that my 5-year-old kid will be able to pick up the phone and say, okay Google, ask Pushak about the weather, and that's when Pushak will tell him about the weather. And I'm hoping to be able to achieve that, and maybe I will. Maybe that will be a topic for our next talk in the future. Well, never know. You never know. That's it for my presentation. I would like to thank you all for listening. I want to credit Slides Go. I used their slides template for this presentation, and it was a great experience. My DMs on Twitter are open if you want to ask me any questions. Go ahead and check out my repos, and let's go ahead and create some beautiful apps.